Move! Now! He's not breathing!
The boy lay on the polished hardwood floor of the Hawthorne living room, his small chest heaving in short, desperate pulls. His lips were turning a frightening shade of blue. Guests screamed, someone fumbled with a phone, a glass shattered somewhere behind them. Marcus stood in the doorway, still wearing his faded work shirt, boots dusty with soil, a pair of gardening gloves clutched in his fist. "Get away from him!" the house manager yelled, grabbing Marcus by the arm. "You're the gardener, you can't—" But Marcus barely heard him. All he could see was the boy's face, the panic in the eyes that were already losing focus, the way the ribs pulled under thin skin, the sound of air that couldn't quite make it in. For a split second, another face flashed in his mind. Leah's, pale and fading under the harsh lights of an operating room. Not again. "Let me through," he said, voice low, shaking with something he refused to name. "Or he will die." No one believed him, and still, Marcus moved. Weeks earlier, when the roses in the Hawthorne garden had just begun to bloom, no one even knew his name. They just called him the gardener. The Hawthorne estate sat on a quiet hill outside Seattle, all glass and stone and careful angles. From the street, it looked like a magazine cover, sleek, expensive, untouchable. Marcus saw it from a different angle. He saw the way morning light hit the dew on the hedge, the way the maple by the driveway dropped its leaves almost in a perfect spiral, the way the soil held water for just the right amount of time. He saw the quiet, too, a cold kind of quiet. Not the gentle silence of a home at peace, but the hollow of a place that had traded warmth for efficiency. Every weekday at 7 a.m., Marcus pulled his old pickup into the service entrance, killed the engine, and sat for just a moment with his hands resting on the steering wheel. In the photo clipped to the sun visor, a little girl with big eyes and braids smiled back at him, missing a front tooth. "Another day, Amara," he murmured. "Let's make it count." He kissed his fingertips and pressed them to the photo, then stepped out of the truck. By 7:05, he was in the garden, gloves on, pruning shears in hand. By 7:10, Olivia Hawthorne had already left the house. She crossed the stone pathway in heels that never seemed to make a sound, phone pressed to her ear, words sharp and precise. "I don't care what the board thinks," she said into the phone, not even glancing toward Marcus. "We launch in Q3. That's final." She passed him without a nod, without eye contact, without even slowing down. To her, he was part of the scenery, the same way the roses were part of the scenery, and the fountain, and the way the sun hit the glass. The only sign she'd been there was the faint scent of expensive perfume and the distant sound of a car door closing as the black SUV rolled down the driveway. Inside the house, her son was waking up to another day without her. Marcus moved through the garden with slow, deliberate care. He trimmed a branch, checked the moisture in the soil with his fingers, adjusted a sprinkler head that had shifted. His hands knew how to be gentle. They had once known how to be something else, too. Fast, decisive, precise, under pressure. Hands that signed charts, held stethoscopes, pressed hard on open wounds. Hands that had failed once. He tugged the garden hat lower over his brow, as if that could cover the memory. By late morning, the house had settled into its routine. The housekeeper moved like a ghost through the glass. The chef prepped lunch. The house manager checked lists on a tablet. Marcus worked outside, unseen. At noon, he heard the front door open and the quiet shuffle of smaller footsteps. He glanced up. A boy stood at the top of the stone steps leading into the garden. Dark hair, pale skin, thin arms folded across his chest. He wore a t-shirt a little too big for him, hands shoved into the pockets of his shorts. Marcus knew him by reputation, not by conversation. Ethan Hawthorne, 10 years old, fragile, often sick, seen from a distance through windows and car doors. A boy who seemed to belong more to nannies and tutors than to his own mother. Ethan looked around the garden like someone who had been dropped on an alien planet. "Hey," Marcus said, not stopping his work. His voice was calm, gentle. "Watch your step on the path. Some of the stones are loose." The boy didn't answer. He just walked slowly along the edge of the grass, hands still in his pockets, gaze unfocused. Marcus watched him out of the corner of his eye. After a few minutes, Ethan sat on the low stone wall by the rose bushes, staring at nothing. There was a slight wheeze in his breathing Marcus couldn't ignore. He knew that sound too well. He forced himself to look back at the soil in front of him. He was a gardener now. That was it. That was the deal he'd made with himself. When he got home that evening, the apartment smelled faintly of laundry detergent and crayons. "Daddy!" A small shape launched at him as he opened the door. He laughed, an actual full laugh, as he caught Amara and lifted her with easy strength. "You get heavier every day," he said, kissing her cheek. "That's 'cause I eat my broccoli," she informed him. "Ms. Jenkins says I'm growing fast." He kicked off his boots and dropped his keys into the chipped ceramic bowl by the door. "How was school?" he asked. Amara launched into a story about a spelling test, a girl who'd tried to cheat, and how she'd drawn a dragon in art class with glitter, even though Mr. Peters hates glitter. Marcus listened. Really listened. These evenings, with microwaved dinners and homework at the small kitchen table, were the only time his chest didn't feel like something was crushing it. "Do you like your garden job?" Amara asked between bites. Marcus thought of the endless glass, the cold hallways, the woman who never looked at him, the boy who wheezed when he walked too fast. "It pays the bills," he said softly, "and it gets me home to you." She seemed satisfied with that. For now. The first time Amara met Ethan, it was by accident. It was a Thursday afternoon when his usual babysitter had called in sick, and Marcus had no one else. He had begged the house manager to let him bring his daughter. "She'll stay out of the way, I promise. She's quiet. She can sit and draw." Reluctantly, the manager had agreed. So Amara sat at the far end of the garden on an overturned bucket, legs swinging, sketchbook in her lap, tongue peeking out of the corner of her mouth as she concentrated. She drew flowers at first, then trees, then a lopsided cat. "You missed a spot," a voice said. Amara looked up. The boy from the window stood a few feet away, watching her sketch. His tone wasn't mocking, just blunt. "Where?" she asked. He pointed at the drawing. "You forgot a shadow under the bench." She squinted, then giggled. "You're right." Marcus straightened from where he was bending over a flower bed, eyes narrowing. He opened his mouth to say something, then closed it again. Let them talk, he told himself. Let them be kids. "I'm Amara," his daughter said. "What's your name?" "Ethan," he replied. "Do you live here?" she asked. He hesitated. "Yeah." She looked around at the sprawling yard, the huge house. "Wow," she whispered. "I live in an apartment. But we have a balcony." "Daddy puts plants there, too." "Your dad's the gardener," Ethan said, more to himself than to her. "No," she said, as if the idea was ridiculous. My daddy is my daddy." From where he stood, Marcus felt something in his chest twist. Over the next days, Ethan started showing up in the garden more often. At first, he just watched Marcus work from a distance. Then he ventured a question. "What's that?" he asked one morning, nodding at the tool in Marcus's hand. "Pruning shears," Marcus said. "Helps me cut away what's dead so the rest can grow." "That's kind of harsh," Ethan muttered. Marcus shrugged. "Sometimes you gotta cut what's hurting the plant so it can breathe." Ethan stared at him, then at the roses. The boy's breathing was always a little loud, like he was trying just a bit harder than everyone else to pull in air. One afternoon, Ethan ran too fast across the lawn. The sprint ended in a fit of coughing that doubled him over. He grabbed a small inhaler from his pocket with shaking fingers. Marcus was beside him before he realized he'd moved. Easy, Marcus said. Sit down. Slow breaths. Slow. He guided Ethan to the stone bench, watching the boy's chest rise and fall. His mind automatically ran through assessments he hadn't used in years. Respiratory rate, color, accessory muscle use. How? Do you know what to do? Ethan managed between shallow breaths. Marcus swallowed. I used to know a lot of kids who got out of breath, he said quietly. Why? Silence stretched. Because of where I worked, Marcus said. A long time ago. Where did you work? Ethan persisted. Marcus stood, putting distance between them again. In a place that never slept, he said. Now drink some water. Ethan didn't ask more that day, but the question hung in the air, along with the faint rattle in his lungs. The night of the fundraiser, the Hawthorne house was almost unrecognizable. Lights lined the driveway. Cars pulled up in a polished procession. Laughter and clinking glasses spilled from the open front doors. A jazz trio played somewhere inside, soft and expensive. Marcus had been instructed to make sure the grounds were perfect. Not good, the house manager had warned. Perfect. No hoses lying around, no tools, no dirt on the path. This is a big night for Ms. Hawthorne. He had spent hours trimming edges, sweeping paths, adjusting uplights. By the time the first guests arrived, the garden looked flawless. He did not. His shirt was clean but old, his boots scuffed, his hands stained faintly green from the plants no amount of scrubbing could entirely erase. From outside, he could see flashes of movement through the tall windows, the swirl of dresses, the dark suits, Olivia in a sleek black gown, spine straight, smile fixed. She was in her element. Ethan was not. He hovered at the edge of the living room, dressed in a too-stiff shirt, hair combed back. There was a strained look around his eyes, like he was trying not to breathe too deeply because every breath reminded him he was somewhere he did not want to be. Stay visible, the house manager had told him, but don't cause trouble, and for God's sake, if you feel sick, don't make a scene. He had nodded. Now, a couple of hours into the event, the air felt heavy. Perfume, food, too many people, too much noise, all pressing in on him. He coughed once, twice. His chest tightened. He reached into his pocket for his inhaler. His fingers brushed empty fabric. He froze. He checked the other pocket, then the inside of his jacket. Nothing. A flicker of panic flared in his chest. He tried to breathe slowly. It didn't help. The room blurred a little at the edges. Taking the stairs one step at a time, Ethan moved away from the crowd. No one stopped him. No one noticed. He made it halfway up before the tightness in his chest spiked. He grabbed the railing. A small, strangled sound left his throat. Down in the garden, Marcus was coiling a hose when he heard it. A sound he knew instantly, instinctively. The sound of someone trying to breathe and failing. He dropped the hose and ran. By the time he reached the kitchen door, the house was no longer just a backdrop. It was a maze he had to push through. "Sir, you can't," a server began, but Marcus brushed past, moving fast without running, threading through clusters of people like he was moving through a crowded ER hallway. Then he saw him. Ethan lay on the floor at the bottom of the stairs, one hand still outstretched toward the railing, eyes wide, lips tinged blue. His chest rose in shallow, rapid strokes. A circle of adults had formed around him, staring, panicking, frozen. Someone was shouting, "Call 911!" Another was crying. No one was doing anything that mattered. Marcus's vision tunneled. He was back under fluorescent lights, another body on another bed, Leah's hand slipping from his. The flatline beep. "Move," he said, voice low but carrying. No one moved. He stepped closer, dropping to one knee, already checking Ethan's airway, scanning for any obstruction. "I said move!" His voice cracked this time, thunder in the quiet. The house manager grabbed his shoulder. You can't touch him! What if you make it worse? You're not qualified. Marcus turned, and for the first time since he'd started working there, his eyes were not soft, not distant. They were blazing. You called 911? He snapped. Yes, someone stammered. They're on their way. And until they get here, he needs more than you standing around and panicking. You're the gardener, the manager hissed. Marcus stared at him for a beat. Then he ripped off his gardening gloves and tossed them aside. Not tonight, he said. Tonight I'm the only damn doctor in this room. Gasps, whispers, confusion. He tuned it all out. His hands moved with an ease that only came from years of repetition. Ethan, he said, voice firm but gentle. Can you hear me? The boy's eyes rolled toward him, unfocused. Tightness in the chest? Marcus asked. Hard to breathe? A faint nod. Okay, buddy, I've got you. He tilted Ethan's head slightly, checking airway, listening to the whistle of air. No obstruction. Severe bronchospasm. Maybe something else layered on top. He needed bronchodilators, oxygen. He had neither. He would have to improvise. Somebody bring me any inhalers he uses, Marcus called out. Now! Check his room, his backpack, the kitchen drawer. Anywhere. No one moved. Olivia finally pushed her way through the crowd, face pale, eyes wide. What's happening? She demanded. Ethan! Ethan! Back up, Marcus said without looking at her. Who do you think you are? She snapped. The only one trying to save your son, he shot back. That shut her up. The minutes stretched. Ethan's breathing got worse. Marcus could feel the tremor in his own hands. He forced his mind to stay clinical. Elevate the head, loosen clothing, slow him down. Ethan, I want you to breathe with me, he said. He exaggerated his own breathing, slow, deep, controlled. In and out. Even if it feels hard. Just follow my count. He placed a hand lightly on the boy's chest, feeling the frantic rise and fall. 1, 2, in. 1, 2, out. Footsteps pounded up the stairs and back down. A nanny sprinted into the room, waving a blue inhaler. It was in his room, she cried. Marcus grabbed it, checking the prescription, the dose, the expiry date in a single glance. Has he used this tonight? He asked. The nanny shook her head, tears streaming. No, he hasn't. Good. He administered the medication, steady and precise. Come on, he muttered. Come on, kid. For a moment, nothing changed. Then slowly, Ethan's breaths grew a fraction deeper. The wheeze softened. Ease. The blue tinge around his lips began to fade. The sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Marcus exhaled for what felt like the first time in minutes. He stayed there, one hand resting on Ethan's shoulder, until the paramedics rushed in. One of them, a blonde woman with tired eyes, slowed as she caught sight of him. Dr. Cole? She blurted, before she could stop herself. Olivia's head snapped up. Marcus looked at the paramedic, jaw tightening. I'm not a doctor, he said quickly. Not anymore. But the paramedic was already staring at him like she'd seen a ghost. You stabilized him, she said under her breath. You probably saved his life. They loaded Ethan onto a stretcher, fitted an oxygen mask over his face, and wheeled him out. Olivia followed, dazed. Marcus stayed where he was, knees on the polished floor, Ethan's inhaler still in his hand. The room had emptied out. It was just him and the sound of music from the other wing of the house that hadn't quite stopped. He opened his hand and stared at the inhaler. His fingers were shaking. The hospital waiting room was too familiar. Olivia sat in a hard plastic chair, her gown replaced now by a simple coat, makeup smudged, hair falling out of its careful style. Her phone lay face down on the seat beside her. Notifications lighting up and fading, ignored. On the other side of the city, Marcus sat on his worn couch, Amara asleep in her room, a cartoon still paused on the TV from earlier. His phone lay on the coffee table between his hands, screen dark. He'd showered twice and still felt the night clinging to him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Ethan's face. And behind it, Leah's. He had broken his own rule. He had told himself, no more patience. He had told himself, gardens only, plants only, nothing that bleeds, nothing that dies in your hands. Tonight, that had shattered. In the hospital, the doctor emerged at last. Ms. Hawthorne? Olivia stood so quickly her chair scraped loudly against the floor. How is he? She asked. He had a severe asthma attack, the doctor said. You got him here in time. Whoever administered his inhaler did it correctly and early enough. It made a big difference. Olivia swallowed, throat aching. Can I see him? In a few minutes, the doctor said. But I need to be candid. According to his records, his condition is more serious than you may have been treating it. I've been following the prescriptions, she said defensively. We have his inhalers, his appointments. An attack like this can be triggered by stress, allergens, many things, the doctor said evenly. But his file notes that his asthma is brittle, unpredictable. He should not be in heavy crowds without careful monitoring. He should always have his rescue inhaler on him, and the people around him should know what to do. The words hit like quiet blows. The people around him should know what to do. She thought of the glittering party, the humans as props, the way she'd told herself he'd be fine. He almost died, Olivia whispered. The doctor's silence was answer enough. At home, in his small apartment, Marcus opened his laptop. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He typed his own name. Dr. Marcus Cole. Dozens of results appeared. Old conference photos, articles. A profile piece about the rising star in emergency medicine. He stared at the face on the screen. Young, confident, in a white coat, eyes bright. He didn't recognize that man. He clicked another link. The headline was about Leah's accident, her death. A brief mention of how her husband, ER physician Dr. Marcus Cole, was present. He slammed the laptop shut. The next morning, Olivia did what she had not done in months. She went outside. The garden was quiet, damp with early morning mist. Marcus was already there, checking the irrigation system, his movements slower than usual. She watched him from the patio for a moment. He looked smaller somehow. Or maybe it was the way he carried himself, shoulders slightly hunched, gaze kept carefully low. Marcus, she called. He froze. It was the first time she'd used his name. He turned slowly. Ma'am. She walked down the steps toward him. For the first time, she saw the lines at the corners of his eyes, the way his hands were calloused in a pattern that did not quite match only gardening tools. Ethan is stable, she said. They're keeping him for observation, but they say he's out of danger. Marcus nodded once, jaw clenched. That's good, he said softly. She held his gaze. The doctor said whoever helped him before the ambulance got there saved his life. He looked away. I just did what I could, he muttered. The paramedic called you Dr. Cole. Her voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. Why? He didn't answer. She took a step closer. Who are you? She asked. Really? He laughed once, humorless. I fix your sprinkler system and trim your hedges, he said. That's all you need to know. That's not all, she said. Not after last night. She pulled her phone from her pocket, thumb moving quickly over the screen. Then she held it up. A headline glowed between them. Emergency room prodigy. Meet Dr. Marcus Cole. A younger version of him stared back at them both, smiling in a way that hurt to look at. "I Googled you," she said. "I wanted to know who saved my son while everyone else just stared." He went very, very still. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "You shouldn't have done that," he said. "Why?" Olivia demanded. "Why are you cutting grass in my backyard when you should be in a hospital saving people?" His head snapped up. "Because the last person I tried to save died on my watch," he said, the words ripped out of him. "And she was my wife." Silence fell heavy between them. The only sound was the soft trickle of the fountain. Olivia's throat tightened. "I'm sorry," she managed. He shook his head. "It was a car accident," he said, eyes distant. "Drunk driver. We were coming back from a movie. She was laughing. One minute we were arguing about popcorn, and the next—" He swallowed. "They rushed us both in. I had a concussion, bruised ribs. She was worse. Internal bleeding. They wanted to operate. I knew the risks. I knew the statistics. I signed the consent anyway." He stared at his bare hands. "I washed up, put on the gown, told myself I'd stay out of the OR. Let someone else handle it. But when they wheeled her in and I saw her on that table, my wife, not a patient, I couldn't stay behind the glass." He laughed again, ragged. "I didn't hold the scalpel, I didn't make the incisions, but I was there. I watched every number drop. I heard every alarm. I watched them lose her, and every day since, I've heard the same sentence replay in my head." "What sentence?" Olivia asked hoarsely. He lifted his gaze to hers. "We did everything we could." His voice cracked on the last word. He clenched his fists. "I walked out of that hospital and never went back," he said. "Sold the house, took whatever jobs I could that didn't involve labs or charts or codes. Ended up here. The garden made sense. Plants don't flatline. If you fail them, they wilt slowly. They give you time to fix it. People don't." Olivia's eyes were bright. "You blamed yourself," she said. "I still do," he admitted. "Every day." He looked past her, toward the house. "Your son's breathing reminded me of kids I used to treat," he said. "I thought I could stay away, pretend I hadn't seen it. But once you've been in that world, you can hear certain things through walls, through windows, through music. Sounds of lungs drowning, hearts failing. I heard him, and something in me refused to let go." And she stepped closer. "You saved him," she said. "You signed a consent someday and lost your wife, and now you're punishing yourself by making sure you never save anyone again." His jaw clenched. "Isn't that what this is?" she pressed. "Hiding in my backyard? Letting people look at you and see the gardener because that's easier than watching them see you fail." He flinched as if she'd struck him. "I can't fail again," he said softly. "You didn't," she whispered. "Not last night." He looked at her, really looked. A woman in an expensive coat who had almost lost her son because she'd been too busy hosting. "What did the doctor tell you?" he asked quietly. She exhaled. "That Ethan's asthma is more dangerous than I wanted to admit," she said. "That I've been treating it like a minor inconvenience instead of something that could kill him. That he shouldn't have been in that room, that crowd, without someone who knew how to watch him." Her voice broke. "I've been so afraid of being a smothering parent, of making him feel weak, that I did the one thing I swore I'd never do. Took my eyes off him." "You can't watch every breath he takes," Marcus said. "But I can take it seriously," she replied, "and I can admit when I need help." She hesitated, then drew a breath. "I want to make you an offer," she said, "and I need you to listen before you say no." He frowned. I have connections, she continued. Hospitals, boards, program directors. I can get you in front of the people who decide who gets privileges, who gets second chances. I can hire the best therapist in the state to help you work through what happened. I can cover costs. I can... He shook his head violently. No. Why? She asked. Because you're afraid? Because going back means you might lose someone again? Because going back means Amara might lose me, he snapped. To the hours, to the stress, to the man I used to be when I thought the hospital needed me more than my family. He ran a hand over his face. You saw what it did to me once, he said. I can't let it take me again. Olivia paused. Bring her, she said simply. He blinked. What? Bring Amara to the garden this weekend, she said. Let her play with Ethan. Let her see where you might stand if you decide to put that coat back on. You're not the only one affected by this decision. Let her be part of it. He stared at her. You're asking me to talk to my 8-year-old about trauma? He asked, incredulous. I'm asking you not to decide alone, she said. I almost lost my son because I decided everything alone. Saturday was softer than the days before. The crowd was gone. The party lights had been taken down. The house looked bigger and emptier without them. Amara ran across the grass, laughing, her braids flying behind her. Ethan followed more slowly, inhaler clipped securely to a small strap on his belt. Olivia watched them from the patio steps. Marcus stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, his usual gloves dangling from one hand. They looked small suddenly, like armor meant for a different kind of battle. Did the doctor say he's okay to run? Marcus asked. Olivia nodded. Within reason. We had a long talk about triggers, medications, monitoring. I have a list, a very detailed list. He half smiled. You're going to make some resident very nervous someday, he said. She smiled faintly. Maybe. The kids paused by the roses. Daddy, can I water them? Amara called. If the housekeeper says it's okay, he replied, and if you don't drown them like last time. I didn't drown them, she protested. I just gave them a lot of love. Ethan laughed, a short, breathy sound. Marcus watched them, something tight in his chest easing just a little. Did you talk to her? Olivia asked. He nodded slowly. I told her I used to help sick people in a big building, he said. That I stopped when Mommy died. That someone needed my help again and I forgot to be afraid for a minute. What did she say? Olivia asked. He swallowed. She asked if the people in that building have dads, he said softly. I told her yes, some of them. She thought about it and then said, if those kids need you, and I still get to have you at bedtime, I guess we can share. His voice trembled on the last word. Olivia's eyes filled. She's braver than both of us, she said. He nodded. She also asked if she could tell her friends that her dad saves people, he added, a touch of wonder in his voice. I didn't know what to say. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a plastic badge holder. Inside was a temporary hospital ID printed just hours earlier. Cole Marcus, consulting physician. Olivia's contacts had moved faster than he would have thought possible. This is just part-time, he said quickly, as if defending himself. 2 shifts a week to start. Nothing heavy. No overnights. I'll still be here in the garden most days. I need this place. It steadies me. You don't have to explain, she said. He looked down at the gloves in his hand. There's something about dirt under my nails that reminds me I'm still human, he said. But maybe I can be human in more than one place. He slipped the gardening gloves into his back pocket. Then, almost reverently, he clipped the badge to his shirt. He looked suddenly taller. Not because anything about his height had changed, but because he was no longer folding himself into a smaller shape. Ethan ran back toward them, cheeks pink, breathing a little fast but controlled. "Dad," he called, skidding to a stop in front of Marcus. Sorry, Mr. Cole." "It's okay," Marcus said. "What's up, buddy?" "Are you really a doctor?" Ethan asked, eyes wide. "Mom told me, but really?" Marcus glanced at Olivia, who lifted her shoulders in a small your call gesture. He crouched so he was eye level with the boy. "I'm someone who knows a few things about fixing broken parts," he said. "Sometimes that's a lung. Sometimes it's a garden. Sometimes—" He hesitated, glancing back at Amara, who watched them thoughtfully. "Sometimes it's a heart." Ethan looked down at the badge, then back at Marcus's face. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not listening when they told you to stay away." Marcus smiled, small but genuine. "Sometimes," he said, "people don't know what you're capable of until they see it. And sometimes, you don't either." He stood, feeling the weight of the badge against his chest. The garden shimmered in the late afternoon light. The roses held droplets from the kids' over-enthusiastic watering, glistening like tiny stars. Laughter floated through the air. "Mama," Amara called to Olivia by accident, then flushed. Ms. Hawthorne." Olivia's smile was soft. "Just Olivia is fine," she said. Marcus glanced at her, surprised. She looked less like a CEO and more like someone's tired, grateful mother. Maybe both could be true. He turned back to the kids. "Hey," he called to them. "You know gardeners don't just look after flowers, right?" Ethan frowned. "What else do they look after?" Marcus watched the two children, one who had almost stopped breathing, one who had taught him how to breathe again, running between the beds he'd tended for months. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "we look after hearts too." The wind shifted, carrying the scent of damp earth and roses across the yard. For the first time in years, the ache in his chest didn't feel like a wound. It felt like something growing. If this story reminded you of someone who quietly carries their own wounds while helping others heal, maybe take a moment, right now, to think of them. In a comment, in a message, or just in your own heart, tell them this: you're allowed to come back to yourself too.